What I'm holding here is the Corsair Galleon 100 SD, a £310 mechanical keyboard which has an integrated Stream Deck. It retails at $350 in North America and €350 in Europe, putting it firmly in the premium keyboard territory. But this is not an ordinary keyboard. It combines 8000Hz hyperpolling to reduce latency with an integrated Stream Deck. And in the Stream Deck area, we've got two rotary dials, we've got a non-touchscreen LCD display, and then we've got 12 customizable Stream Deck keys. So the real question is, can this keyboard replace your gaming keyboard and your Stream Deck? Or is it trying to do too much at once? That's something I'll hopefully answer in this video for all of you. And I will say that right now it's just been released and it is out of stock in some regions, but I'm quite fortunate that Elgato sent this out to me for review. But they have had no input in this video and they've got no influence on what I think or what I say to all of you. So without further ado, let's dive deep into the video. I'll talk about features first and then I'll take a closer look at how the keyboard works and how the Stream Deck works. And I'll give you my honest opinion on what it can and cannot do. The Corsair Galleon 100 SD brings together 8000Hz hyperpolling and a fully integrated Stream Deck, aiming to serve both competitive gamers and content creators in a single device. Compared to the standard 1000Hz polling rate found on most keyboards, 8000Hz reduces report latency to just 0.125 milliseconds. It also supports SOCD, which stands for Simultaneous Opposite Cardinal Directions, which prioritizes the last directional input when opposing keys are pressed, which is something that can make a real difference when playing fighting games. It uses MLX Pulse 5-pin tactile switches with acoustic dampening and is available in 7 regional layouts: North American, Swiss, German, Spanish, French, Italian and United Kingdom. Per key RGB lighting and a dedicated game mode round out the core gaming features. The real differentiator is the integrated Stream Deck module, which has 2 customizable rotary dials, a full colour LCD display and 12 programmable keys. One of the most unusual aspects of the Galleon 100 SD is that it relies on 2 completely separate software ecosystems. Unlike most Corsair keyboards, this one doesn't use Corsair's iQ application. Instead, it's managed through Corsair Web Hub, which is a browser-based configuration tool focused specifically on keyboard performance, RGB lighting, SOCD settings, key assignments, and game mode. The Stream Deck section of the keyboard is controlled through the full Stream Deck application, and this isn't a cut-down implementation. It's the same powerful software that I've been using daily for 9 years with my Stream Decks, and it supports thousands of plugins, deep integrations, and highly customizable workflows. On paper, this separation does actually make sense, as Corsair already has Web Hub for gaming hardware, and Elgato, which Corsair owns, already has a mature Stream Deck ecosystem. In practice though, it does mean managing 2 separate applications for a single keyboard, which is unusual. So some users may find the lack of a unified control center frustrating. First impressions out of the box are positive. The Galleon 100 SD feels premium immediately. It weighs in at 1.392 kilograms, and that density gives it a solid high-end feel with no flex. In the box you get the keyboard itself, 2 1.8 meter USB-A to USB-C cables, a magnetic cushioned wrist rest, and a combined keycap and switch puller. It's great to see a puller included, especially for a keyboard that supports switch removal. However, it's slightly disappointing that no spare keycaps or switches are included, and at the time of recording, individual replacements aren't available to purchase from the Elgato store. Hopefully that will change in the future if demand is strong. Around the back, there are 2 USB Type-C ports, and the one that's marked with the keyboard icon is the primary connection that is required for all functionality. The input marked with a USB connection icon enables USB pass-through, allowing you to plug in additional accessories like a mouse, headset, or flash drive directly through the keyboard. The USB pass-through input sits between the front and back of the keyboard. Pass-through is a nice addition, but if you do use it, you will end up with 3 cables running from the keyboard, which might not appeal to those of you who are aiming for a clean desk setup. Setup is fairly straightforward, but there are a couple of steps which are worth mentioning. After connecting the keyboard, you'll need to open Corsair Web Hub in your browser to check for and install the latest firmware update. That process was quick and painless in my testing. You'll then need to install the latest version of Elgato Stream Deck software. Once installed, make sure to apply any available updates that are specifically for the Galleon 100 SD, as the Stream Deck section relies on that application. Because the keyboard and Stream Deck operate independently, both pieces of software need to be configured separately before everything is fully up and running. The Galleon 100 SD doesn't become useless if the Stream Deck app isn't running, because Corsair includes 2 onboard fallback profiles that operate independently of the Stream Deck software. Corsair calls this hardware mode. One profile functions as a dedicated number pad, and I have genuinely found that useful to use day to day. And the other profile includes multimedia controls and quick access to settings like game mode, polling rate adjustments, theme changes, and flash tap SOCD. These built-in profiles are especially useful if you connect the keyboard to a computer that doesn't have the Stream Deck app installed, for example, a work PC or a secondary laptop. My main frustration is that these fallback profiles are useful, but they cannot currently be imported into the Stream Deck app. If you want the same layout inside the Stream Deck ecosystem, you can recreate the number pad easily, but I've not discovered a way yet to import those Corsair Web Hub options such as game mode and polling rate adjustment. So it would be good in the future to see Corsair or Elgato add this missing functionality in official plugins and profiles through the Stream Deck marketplace. Another quirk is how the keyboard behaves when you're booting up your computer. When you first put it on your computer, the Galleon 100 SD defaults to the Corsair profiles, and it only switches to your customized Stream Deck layout once the Stream Deck application has fully launched. In practice, this has not been a major issue for me, and it makes sense technically since the Stream Deck functionality relies on its software to operate. So I've spoke about features and I've given you some background information about the Corsair Galleon 100 SD. What I'd like to do in the next few sections is take a deeper dive and give you a closer look at build quality and then keyboard integration. And then we'll go over to the Stream Deck area and talk about the hardware mode, which is the fallback profiles. And then we'll talk about the Stream Deck integration as well. And all of this is for the benefit of those of you who are genuinely interested in buying this keyboard. And hopefully this will help you make a decision as to whether this keyboard is for you or whether it's not for you. Now, let's start with build quality. The provided cables are really good, 1.8 meters in length, Type-C to Type-A, the braided. Yeah, really good. Happy with the cables that are provided. Palm rest. This is probably not something that really, sells you the keyboard, but it's such a nice addition. It's actually one of my favorite things about this keyboard. I came from a wireless Logitech keyboard that I've been using recently, so it's been really good for me to go back to a larger keyboard which has a palm rest. It's got a really nice feel to it, and I like the fact that if you don't want to use it, if you're taking up too much room, you can just lift it up and put it to the side, and then when you're ready, you can just connect it back again. Really good. Now, this is a very expensive keyboard. There's no way getting away from that fact. It's a pricey keyboard, but it does feel premium. And one of the reasons it feels premium is because of its weight. It's nearly 1.4 kilograms. See the Galleon name there. But it does feel premium. This isn't like cheap plastic. It's like solid. And yeah, it's got a really nice feel to it. Now, round at the back, we've obviously got the 2 USB-C connections here. That's the main one. That always has to be connection. There'll be another cable there if you want pass-through, and then this is where you would pass through your device, USB flash drive, headset, or whatever. But it does mean having a few things connected at the back of the keyboard. At the back here, we've also got the stands there as well. And the good thing about this, I can lift this up and can show you, is there's actually two parts to this. So you can just bring up that one if you just want to raise the keyboard a little bit, or you can bring up the back one. So depending on how high you want to set the keyboard, you can raise it up 1 or 2 steps and then get it into the position that you want. I've actually just been using this on the lower level or just none at all, and I've still found it to be okay, but it depends on your preference. If you want it, flat, first level or second level, is up to you. But I do think that overall the build quality is really nice here. I think one thing that everyone has to remember though is that we don't have a number pad at the side. Now, I will speak about this later. I have recreated a number pad and it does work, and I do have everything that I need, and I can add more functionality to this area if I want. But these Stream Deck keys are good, but they're not as good as a mechanical key. They're not. There's no way getting around it. If you use your number pad a lot, if you love the number pad, this isn't the keyboard for you. You can recreate it, but you're not going to get the same experience. Just be aware of that. I will say as well, the keys are very well made, and they do provide the puller for you. So I can get this in here. There we go. Just pop this out. And you can see the keys there. So these are the switches underneath. Very nice. I don't see Elgato selling any of these as yet, but I do think it'd be good for them to sell those in the future. But once you've removed them, you can just, you could buy third-party keys and you add them back like that. So although Elgato don't provide any keys, or they don't sell any keys at this time, you could buy keys from third-party companies if you do run into any problems in the future. But the keys are well made, so I don't think that's something you have to worry about anytime soon. In this section, I'd like to talk about the keyboard, because as useful as Stream Deck integration is, none of that would matter if the keyboard was bad. Now, I've been using this every single day for 2 weeks, and I've generally found it to be a really nice keyboard to use. If I bring this up here, let's see, this is a typing test. I'm not making as many mistakes as I did with my previous keyboard, which is probably because this was a kind of smaller keyboard. The keys were quite close together. So there's good spacing here, and the keys feel quite light, quite soft. I mean, it's a mechanical keyboard, so they are quite loud, but not as loud as other mechanical keyboards. So overall, I found it a nice keyboard to use. My only annoyance is that I don't care too much about the number pad because I've recreated it here, but there's no indicator for the caps lock light, and that's something that I have found annoys me a little bit because I want to know if the caps lock is on. This is something I have seen in other RGB keyboards, but there is per key lighting. So I'm hoping that it is a way for me to assign different colors depending of if that's on or off. But there's an issue with Corsair Web Hub, which I'm facing, which I'll show later on, which is why I've not been able to address that as yet. But if you look at the keyboard, you can see a Windows logo and Copilot logo. So this looks like a Windows only keyboard. And I have used this with my Windows work laptop and with my Dell laptop, which is also Windows. But for 95% of the time over the last 2 weeks, I've been using this with my Mac Studio. So I've been using it with my Mac and it works great. It works great. I've had no issues. Now, obviously, this does support key assignment, so you can change it if you wish. But what I've been doing is just remembering where things are. So Opt would be the Windows, Command would be the Alt there. So I'm just remembering where those keys are. I've obviously got the North American layout as well, so I have to push like Shift and 3 there for the pound sign. But I've had the odd mistake, but I know where everything is, so it's not an issue. So I've not had any problem switching, over to this using a Windows keyboard layout on a Mac. It's not been an issue for me, but generally speaking, I use Windows laptops during the day for work and then use my Mac at night. So I'm always switching between them. But it's just something to be aware of. This will come up for a lot of people because if you're using Stream Deck on a Mac, you're going to have to deal with the fact that these keys are not perfectly mapped for your computer. It's not an issue for me, but it is something to be aware of. This will work as a standard keyboard as well if you connect to Linux. And I connected it to my Xbox Series X and it worked. It just gave you the hardware mode, the fallback profiles, and it worked plug and play. And you can use it with Sony PlayStation as well, but you just have to use Function and Windows to activate the PlayStation mode and then do the same to deactivate it. Now I want to show you a tutorial here because this is the most useful one that I found. I'll leave a link to this in the description area, and I recommend going through this if you buy this keyboard because there's a lot of useful information here. For example, what I was talking about there, you can see Windows PC, Apple Mac, Microsoft Xbox One, Series X and S, and then Sony PlayStation 4 and 5. But if you go down, you can see connecting to PlayStation mode, Function and Windows key hold for 5 seconds. So there is an additional step if you're connecting to a PlayStation 4 or 5. With the Xbox, it's plug and play. Now, if you go down the tutorial, you'll see down here. I've highlighted it already. So there's a shortcut here for game mode. So game mode activates that 8000 Hertz hyperpolling, etc. And all you have to do is Function and F1. Now, it went red and then green. The reason it's doing that is red is the game mode color, but I've changed it in Corsair Web Hub to be green, but for some reason it goes to red first and then goes to the color that you select. I'm not sure why it does that. Then you just push the same combination, Function F1 to disable it. Now, if you go down here, you'll see that there's more options here, and these are all the shortcuts. Now, these are useful because when Stream Deck is activated at the side here, we don't have access to changing, the polling ray and flash tap and different things like that. But the function keys does give you some of that back. You can see there's shortcuts for media track and previous media tracks and, decreasing volume and different things like that. So there are some useful things there. Macro recording, flash tap on and off. So yeah, have a look at those because you might find that you use those from time to time. And I'm sure you'll find some of them useful. And the other thing, in addition to macro recording, is the lighting effects. So you can see here, horizon, watercolor, spiral, rainbow. And this corresponds to what you see here in the Corsair Web Hub. So these give you, gives you shortcuts to changing to those. So if I, right here, you'll see function, 1, 2, 3, you see him changing it. So that's per key, that's the per key ripple. And then I think the last one's static, like that. So it gives you a shortcut to all of those color profiles. But as I was saying, I have been facing an issue with Corsair Web Hub. So when it comes to the keyboard, it's so far so good. Everything that I've said about the keyboard so far has been positive, but it's important to remember that all of the keys here, this section here, is all controlled using the Corsair Web Hub browser tool. That's what you use to do key assignments, change lighting, etc. And that's where I've run into some problems. Now, this keyboard is just being released just now, so I guess you could call it, a beta phase or an early adoption of this keyboard. I'm hoping that Corsair and Elgato, push out a lot of firmware updates over the next few months to address little bugs like this. But at the time of recording, I have run into some bugs. The one issue that I faced, and one of the most annoying ones, is that when you're authorizing your keyboard to connect to the Corsair Web Hub, sometimes the connection doesn't work properly for whatever reason. And when that happens, yes, you'll still see, the colors and the lighting and the Stream Deck on, but the keys will be completely unresponsive. So you can't type, you'll keep hitting the keys and nothing will happen. It's like it's dead. And the only way to fix it is to take out the Type-C cable at the back, plug it back in. It's not the end of the world, especially as, you only connect to Corsair Web Hub every so often to change things, but it shouldn't be happening either. And I never want my keyboard to just go completely dead, especially when it's powered. So that's bad. Now, as far as other things here, I've not had any issues with key assignments. I've played around with that. It's not something I'm really going to be using a lot, if I'm honest, but I've played around with it and that did seem to work. I've not used flash tap because I don't have any fighting games I play a lot to really analyze whether it's working. Just me just typing the keys there to test that. That's useful if you want to check your key assignments are correct. And then there's game mode. And when you activate game mode here, you can change, you can see that's the default settings for game mode. 8000 hertz, brightness, static lighting. You can take that off if you want. And you can switch that off and go back to lighting effects like that. So all of that, from what I've tested so far, seems to be working. So for example, if I enable game mode here, if I switch back, you can see I've set it to green. You can see it's green. And if I go back and I disable it, go back, it's went back to the multicolor because game mode is off. So all of that seems to be working. The area I'm having issues with right now is lighting effects. So it does this as well. You have to disable themes. So this is the area where I'm having a problem. All of these profiles here, horizon, static, watercolor, those are the profiles you saw in this tutorial, which you've got shortcuts for. And those shortcuts do work with the keyboard. But I'm trying to set it to a static color, trying to set it to green or pink. Nothing happens there. I try and change it to type lighting key. Change back. No, doesn't work. So I can do it with the shortcut, but it doesn't work from the Corsair Web Hub. So nothing I do here, none of the these features on this particular tab, the lighting effects tab, do not currently work for me. And I tested this on my Dell Windows laptop. It's the same thing. It's not a Mac OS thing. It's a browser thing. It's the Corsair Web Hub. And I don't know if it's Corsair Web Hub or if it's the keyboard itself. But as it stands, many of these things, all the other features here, key assignments and flash tap, game mode, all of those things, when you make the changes here in the browser, they work in the keyboard and those changes can be seen. But lighting effects do not currently work for me. So hopefully they address that problem. I'm sure other people are facing the same thing. So hopefully they'll look into that and hopefully they fix it with a firmware update, because that's a little bit annoying, because of all the features on Corsair Web Hub, the lighting effects are the ones, that I would probably spend most time on to customize the lighting, if you're gaming, you'd want to have WASD, etc., or caps lock, like I was saying. You want to customize the lighting as you see fit. But as it stands, that connection is not working. So for the time being, I'm having to rely on using the shortcut keys. Let's talk more about what Corsair call hardware mode, but it's essentially fallback profiles. So if you look at their official description, they say that Corsair Web Hub is not running or the keyboard is connected to a device that does not support Corsair Web Hub. The keyboard operates in hardware mode, which uses profiles and settings that have been saved to the onboard storage, shortcuts mode and number pad mode. So we've got two profiles there. Now, right now, you can see I've got my Stream Deck activated. These are the 4 profiles I've set up so far. I'm going to close the Stream Deck app, like so that will disappear. Now, on that note, I have discovered another bug. Around 50% of the time that I launch my Mac Studio, the computer loads up, and then when the Stream Deck app is loaded, Stream Deck appears here, and it appears on my Stream Deck XL and my normal Stream Deck. But 50% of the time, despite the fact Stream Deck is launching on my other Stream Decks, it doesn't load here. I still have this hardware mode. So I have to close the Stream Deck app, close the software, relaunch it, and then it appears. Again, I think this is a bug which is going to be ironed out soon, but it is something that I have discovered so far early on in the life of the Galleon 100 SD. Okay, let's focus on these 2 profiles. We've got number pad and we've got shortcuts mode. So the number pad, yeah, I mean, what is there to say about here? It is a number pad, and I do think that these keys are not as good as, these keys up here. These keys are nicer to touch, the ones up here. These are nicer keys here. But I think for a lot of people, having a number pad here is a nice supplement, because most of the time, unless you're using a number pad extensively, this will do the job a quick calculation or whatever. And if it's not enough, you can still use the numbers at the top of your keyboard. So it's nice to have this number pad here, and it's got everything that you need. So that's really good. And I also really like this shortcuts mode. You've got access to, skip track, etc., play, pause, and we've got game mode on, game mode off. You can mute the mic. We've got different themes here. This will change all the different pre-made themes that are there. We've got flash tap on and off. We've got the hyper polling. You can change it 125, 1000, and 8000. Profile switch, and then you've got the keyboard lighting level, and then you've got the Stream Deck integration level. Now, I showed you all this earlier in the video, but it is worth going over again because I think these are good. I think this works really well because this is useful, and it's also something which you're going to see when you connect to your PlayStation, when you connect to your Xbox. If you have intentions of using this without using the Stream Deck app, then this is what you'll be relying on. And I do think that, if you just want to use this as a pure gaming keyboard with your games console, those shortcuts here are quite useful, enabling game mode and changing the colors, etc. So yeah, it's really useful. I really do like this mode. The only thing, and I mentioned this earlier, is that I really do wish there was an option to import these directly into the Stream Deck app. Hopefully that's something we'll see in the future. Last but not least, we have Stream Deck integration. And this really is what sets this keyboard apart from all other keyboards on the market. Stream Deck here, it's excellent. This isn't a watered down version of the Stream Deck. This is a Stream Deck. We've got 12 keys, we've got a great LCD display, and we've got 2 rotary dials, which you can see. I've set one up for volume. I can also push it down because these are clickable, so I can mute it. And this one, you can actually assign this to do lots of things. You can set this up to be, you turn left, it does one thing, turn right, it does another, push it down, it does another. At the moment, I've got this doing the same thing for all of them, which is just switch profiles. And it works so well. It's absolutely amazing. So I will say you have to understand, I'm sure you're aware of this already, but you only get out of Stream Deck what you put into it. When you get this, you're going to have nothing. There's not going to be anything displayed here. There's not going to be any shortcuts. There's nothing like that. You have to build your profiles. You have to build your pages, and you have to create your landscape. You've got a blank canvas to create something that's going to be useful for you. Now, as it stands, I've created 4 different profiles, and over time, I'm going to add a lot more. And the more I spend time doing that, the more I put into it, the more I will get out of it. So I'll give you a quick rundown. Right now, I've got my lights. These are the 4 lights I've got around. These are Elgato lights, and essentially these switch my lights on and off, or put the brightness down or up. That's what they do. Now, I will say one thing, and I said this at the start of the video. Will this replace your Stream Deck? And the answer is yes. If you are using like the original Stream Deck kind of design with 15 keys, you can see here, and you can actually see them going off at the same time. If you're using something like that just now, this can replace it. It only has 3 less keys. So if you've got a lot of functionality here that you use, you can certainly move it over here, and I've certainly found that I am not using this for my lights anymore at all. I'm using this for my lights all the time because it's there. Why would I reach all the way over there to change my lights when I've got it here on my keyboard? So I do think that if you have one of the smaller Stream Decks, 6 keys or 15 keys, if you have it here, you might find that you don't use the other one. But that being said, why would you give your other Stream Deck away? What you would do with that is just repurpose it, create different profiles and use that for something else. Now, if you've got the XL, 32 keys, it's a different story. You've got so many keys here that it's different. I think there's a different argument there. If you've got your Stream Deck XL set up in a certain way, lots of keys, lots of functionality, I'm not sure 12 keys replaces 32. But you could do it, obviously different pages, different profiles. Okay, back to this. I've got one profile here for lights. I've got one for opening essentially what I consider to be my most used applications. Google Chrome, Safari, Settings, DaVinci Resolve, OBS, which you can see is on because I'm recording with it just now, Finder, and then I've got Notes, Text Edit, LibreOffice. Again, this is all for taking notes and research, etc. Discord, VS Code, and WhatsApp. Now, I can add additional pages to this as well if I want. Number pad, you can see I've recreated the number pad, and this was very easy to do. I just had to find numbers. Actually, you can see here, see that I've got the 7. If I jump over here, you'll see what's going on. On the 7 there, I forgot to delete that 7. So I'll take that away and go back, and it's gone. It's so easy to use once you get used to it. So I've recreated the number pad there, and I've tried to do the same as what I had before with the default profile, and it works well. And I can add to it. I can obviously add different keys here. I can add additional keys here if I want. I can add additional pages. This is essentially a second page of the number pad. The next one I've got is shortcuts. This is just a list of different shortcuts which I've added, which I'm not going to touch because I'm recording. I'm scared I'm going to set something off. But I've got like cut, paste, select all, save, undo, redo, etc. Saves down here. I think that's go full screen. If I remember, I need to actually go back and check all of these. So yeah, there's lots of shortcuts that you can use there, and in the app you'll see there preset actions. You can see there's a lot of default ones there already, or you guys can't see that because it's showing in a pop-up window. But there's like it's got screenshots and cut, copy, move left, move right, etc. So there's lots of shortcuts there, and actually looking at it, if I remember right, these are actually screenshots. Those ones are cut and paste and select all. But yeah, these are just shortcuts, and then yeah, that's it. I've got my lights, my apps, number pad, and shortcuts. Now that's only 4 profiles that I've set up. I'm going to add some ones for apps. So for example, you can set it so that when I launch DaVinci Resolve to edit a video such as this, it will automatically change all these keys to be shortcuts for DaVinci Resolve. Or if I'm editing a photo, or if I'm doing anything like that, I can create a profile for each app. So whenever I open a game or an app, it will change the buttons and it can automatically change over. And I can actually show you that just now. So this is the Stream Deck app, and I'll take my face away so you can see what's going on here. So up here, we've got all the Stream Decks, which I've got. You can see there's the OG one, which I was showing you earlier. And there's the XL. You can obviously do the virtual one, the mobile one. But here I've got my profile. So there's Elgato lights, main apps, number pad, etc. When you go to the settings area, there's an option here. You select the application. So what this means is this will automatically switch to this profile when the Stream Deck app window is closed and the following application is in the foreground. So what they're saying is, when I open my controls for my lights, it will switch to the lights. Now, I've not set that up for the other ones, but I could, for example, say that if I'm using XL, it would switch to the number pad, things like that. And it really does make a huge difference when you can do things like that, that when you switch to Call of Duty, all your Call of Duty shortcuts come up, or Fortnite, or FIFA. Any game you're playing, you can create and manage different shortcuts here. And you can be, you can have just 3 or 4 things, or you can have 100 things spanned across different pages. Now, how you do it, it's essentially drag and drop, but essentially you've got keys, and then you've got your dials. Now, the dials does limit what you can do, but with the dials, you drag it into one of these 4 boxes, but the top 2 are the ones that you actually control. So the bottom ones are more like information. But at the top there, that one is an action trigger. And that's what I'm using to go left and right. But I could, do different actions with those. But there's volume and there's clocks and different things you can add. This section here will depend on what plugins you add. And that kind of summarizes what Stream Deck is all about. What you get from this is what you get, what you put into it. You need to spend hours creating profiles, finding the right plugins. And the Stream Deck marketplace is absolutely massive. This is the home page. It just gives you an idea of what you can do with it. There's a plugins page, and because I'm in macOS, it defaults to macOS. But if I remove that, you can see, I mean, there's thousands of different things here. Now, the icons are great too. Most of these are free as well. There are some paid ones, but most of the ones I've seen are free. And that's how I set up my number pad. What you do with the number pad is you just create an action key, and then you just drag in the icon that you want. So what I did was I downloaded several icon packs, and I found the numbers that I wanted. And then you just assign, you know, the Stream Deck here. I'm sorry, I'll get this over. What you do is assign a Stream Deck key to the number 7. And that's all you're doing, and that creates the number pad. And that's the same as what I did with the apps. There's an option to do like a hotkey application. So you see, when I press this, open this particular application. So there's lots of icons to help you do that. And there's pre-made profiles as well. If I jump over, there's pre-made profiles for Discord, for Xbox, for OBS. There's lots of paid ones, free ones. It's just incredible. You can see Premiere Pro, Lightroom Classic, different things. And then there's screensavers there as well. What I'd love to see though at this stage is just more options for the Stream Deck XL. That's what I'd love to see. Because obviously this is not the Stream Deck XL, sorry, I'll close this. For the Galleon 100 SD. That's what we need to see. I mean, there are some packs for it already. You can see these are paid. You know, the special profile packs that have been set up. So you can see there's a Battlefield 6 option for the Galleon, Essential Keypad. I'd like to see some free options added, but even just compared to 2 weeks ago when I was first looking at this, there's a lot more options added already. So hopefully in a few months' time, we're going to see lots of really cool options here. You know, pre-made profiles, pre-made setups for you, so that you just go in and click import, and then that's you got, you know, your game ready or your app ready. So if you play Battlefield 6, you could purchase this one, and you'll see lots of options there, shortcuts to do what you need to do in the game. So yeah, it's a really powerful thing. And I don't want to go over Stream Deck too much because I'm sure you've all seen a Stream Deck before, but the implementation here is great. It works perfectly. You are limited to 12 keys, so in some situations that might not suit you, but what I found is just in general, sitting here, it's so much quicker for me to use this than going to my other Stream Decks because I'm sitting typing here anyway. So long story short, Stream Deck implementation here is excellent. They've done a fantastic job of integrating a fully functional Stream Deck into a mechanical keyboard. I hope you've all enjoyed this detailed look at the Corsair Galleon 100 SD mechanical keyboard with Stream Deck integration. This obviously has not been a summary video. It's been a more detailed analysis and overview of what this keyboard is and what it's not. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to create a video for those of you who are genuinely interested in buying this keyboard. At the start of this video, I did ask, can this replace a keyboard and a Stream Deck? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, it can. The 12 keys here and the 2 dials that display is a fantastic replacement for a 6 or a 15 key Stream Deck. You could use this to replace the larger Stream Deck XL, which is actually something I want to review in the future, next few weeks. You could use that to replace that. But I think if you were trying to transfer a lot of functionality over from the XL to here, you would be making some compromises and splitting a lot of profiles over many pages, but it can be done. Ultimately, I found this to be a fantastic keyboard to use, but the key thing here really is that Stream Deck integration. The fact that I'm not reaching over to adjust things, to change things. I've got access to my lights right here. At any point, I can change my lights, put them on and off. I can quickly launch default applications. I don't have to even go for my mouse. It's a little thing. I know this is a first world problem, but it really does make me more productive, and it really does streamline what I'm doing at this desk. So for me, this has been fantastic. It's been absolutely amazing. Now let's talk about some of the elephants in the room, some of which I've discussed in the video. One, that yeah, there are a couple of minor bugs, mostly with Corsair Web Hub, and I'm hoping that Corsair address those and, you know, fix those with a future firmware update. And I've got no doubt that they will. I mean, this Stream Deck is, what, 9 years old? This one here, it's like 9 years old, and they're still putting out updates for it. So Elgato and Corsair are really good when it comes to software updates. So yeah, I'm confident they will fix that. The other elephant in the room is that this is not for everyone. It really is not for everyone. If you're just looking for a nice mechanical keyboard, save your money and just buy a nice mechanical keyboard. Most people out there are not going to need this. If you're a gamer, or especially if you're a game streamer, you're going to love this. And I think that a lot of other people are going to love it as well. If you create videos, if you're a content creator, if you just want to be more productive, if you're using a particular application, you know, where you've set up a lot of macros, this is where this comes into its own. It really is about being productive. And the more you add to the Stream Deck, you know, the app, the profiles, the pages, once you start building it up, you get more from it. And it really is about creating your own little productive workflow at the side of the keyboard. I don't think this is for everyone, but for those of you who are looking to be more productive, that do want that additional functionality, this keyboard is excellent. Of course, it is pricey, £310, $350, €350. This is not a cheap keyboard, but if you're looking to buy a good mechanical keyboard that has an integrated Stream Deck, this is for you. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, please do post them down below. And if you have found the video useful, please do subscribe. Please do give a like. And yeah, leave a comment, and I'll speak to you all very soon. And stay tuned, because I will be doing a more detailed analysis of the Stream Deck XL. I don't know why I'm trying to go with that camera. I've got the overhead camera here. I'm trying to bring it around. But yeah, please do stay tuned. I do have a video about the Stream Deck XL coming in the future as well. Until next time, take care.